Hello and welcome back to GI Live Online. I'm Chris and I'm joined now by another industry legend. Velan Studios spoke at last year's event just before they launched their ambitious new multiplayer game, Knockout City, and we felt we should get them back to discuss how it all went. So I'm pleased to welcome back Velan Studios president, Guha Bala. Hello Guha, how are you doing?
Hey Chris, I'm doing well.
It's lovely to have you back. Let's begin with it. Knockout City launched about 12 months ago, is that right? And so how did it all go?
So launched on May 21st, 2021. And so we had officially our 1 year anniversary a few days ago. It was overwhelming. It was so exciting. We had been on this almost a little over 4 years from when the first concept of throwing and catching a ball. We thought that would be a good idea to make a game around, but it takes so much time to just hunker down, find the fun, and prototype to a point where we can't put the controller down from a play standpoint. And it's not automatic, it's not linear, it's a lot of iteration, but it gave us a firm foundation about 18 months in to take it forward. And then from there, we realized the conventional paradigm for engine technology, at least that we had available to us, couldn't handle that kind of network play. And so we had to rebuild an engine from scratch, a tool chain from scratch, and build a team around it as well. So that was a big journey for us. So really the launch of Knockout City was a culmination of not only creating this thing that we hoped would feel really fresh and different, but also developing a whole new technology paradigm and approach to developing it because we couldn't do it otherwise. And then building a team that beyond the core team to be able to really get this thing out, get it to a really high quality level and so forth. And of course, we met our partners along the way, EA and EA Partners that were our publisher and did a phenomenal support for us in terms of getting it to market and launching it. And we launched it with this block party concept, which was and we'll get into this, I'm sure, in a little bit, but the landscape for competitive multiplayer games, MP-only games, has changed quite a lot since we started. And we thought, okay, well, the way to launch this is to get it in as many hands as possible for people to play. And so we launched it globally with this block party concept, which is about 9 days of unlimited play. Before we switched to a regular sort of premium price, $20 for the standard edition, with a free trial for everybody. So in that block party period, we saw overwhelming response. I think it was over 5 million players within a relatively short period of time, high concurrency levels, surprisingly large contingent from LATAM, from Brazil, big free-to-play market. And actually, surprisingly, I think the second largest market outside of the United States was Japan, which has an intrinsic dodgeball culture. We knew that, but relatively few Western games gain resonance over there. And so it had a really nice response in Japan as well. And the critical acclaim was really good. I mean, it was really an honor to get the high ratings from Game Informer and IGN and a whole host of others, that Ars Technica. And as people that live for the creative work, that's really high praise, and of course from a community. And the community itself was something remarkable. I think is in the last year, the game has evolved, quite a bit. And one of the things that we're really going for with a game like this was going from communities that can be toxic to community and play dynamic that could be really positive, a competitive environment that could be really positive from an emotional standpoint, except for me when I get beaten all the time. But in any case, like a really positive community, and that actually is held. And we're so appreciative of the games community today. It's just really very constructive, very positive, always looking for, hey, look, what's next? How can we improve this? Stuff like that. And with genuinely good ideas as well. So many things that we've done, subsequent to launch have been in direct response, sort of embracing the community's feedback and evolving the game as well. So it was a huge kind of, affirmation for creative risk that we thought we could never take in our prior professional lives. and something that really departed from the standard game paradigm to create a new type of play pattern, and to get that kind of critical response was really incredibly gratifying for us. Critical, community wise, audience wise, geography wise, all of those things.
That's brilliant. Well, you'd mentioned the block party, because I never heard it referred to as that before, but you tried these sort of different models, these different takes. Talk us through them. What worked and sort of what didn't?
So I think that overall, what had changed, in the competitive MP only games was that I think during the early stages that we started, Overwatch was relatively recent. Rocket League was still in its premium pricing model. And so you had this whole class of games that were mid-price premium. So we weren't going for a $60, $70 initial release with a big campaign, things like that. There's a lot of reasons for that. Part of the reason is that campaigns require typically large teams and very resource intensive. And you almost need one to justify the price point. And what we really wanted to do is to create it's kind of very much an MP focused, social experience, and with a team that we had built. So in 2016, when we started Velan Studios, it was 6 of us that started the studio, and by 2017, as the game matured, that core team for Knockout City was only about 12 people, and so it just wouldn't be the game that we could build. And so we started it with that in mind. And when we signed to EA, that was also the business model that was imagined too, for it to make the economics make sense for EA as well. But by the time Knockout City launched, most of the mid-price premium multiplayer-focused games had either converted to free-to-play or were being launched free-to-play. And launching free-to-play, actually, we had designed a lot of the systems in Knockout City to be free-to-play friendly, but it's not an automatic thing, and it's not an automatic thing from a perspective of what do your progression systems look like, what do the game engagement systems look like, and those sorts of things. And it's also not automatic from a team standpoint. We had a team that was really focused around game mechanics and core gameplay, which I think really shone through in what Knockout City is. But live services was still pretty new, to us. We had different sets of experiences in the past, but one of the most important things about a team is not only what they've done in the past, but how they've done it together as a team in the past. And so we had to bring all those things together. So we're like, okay, well, we have to launch this thing in a mid-price premium manner. And of course, we got lots of feedback from the community saying, why isn't this free to play? We had to launch it in mid-price premium. But we also had to, one, make that price barrier as affordable as possible. So we went to this kind of $20 price point that we thought was going to be effective. But then make it as easy as possible for people to get in and try it. Because one of the hardest things we found was if you write the concept of, hey, I got a game about dodgeball, and you say, here's what you do, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't scream awesomeness. Frankly, we put it in front of people and they're like, yeah, that could be interesting, but I don't know what this means. And so we were like, okay, well, we came up with this mantra together with EA that playing is believing. You have to play it, and you'll feel why. I think Ars Technica said it's one of the best team-based at the time that it launched, one of the best team-based multiplayer experiences they've played in years. And when it, but to experience that, you had to play it. And so we said, okay, well, we have this premium model. We have to bring down the barriers as much as possible to try it. And the way to do that, to one, get word of mouth going, but importantly, the game itself, what's special about the game is playing with friends. And it's playing with friends not only in a standard multiplayer context, but it's it has a unique type of flavor of team-based play, which is interdependent play, meaning you are throwing and passing and catching in conjunction with your teammates in highly coordinated maneuvers with lots of emergent gameplay possibilities, things like that. So you had to make it as easy as possible. Even if you are all in on the premium purchase, you had to make it as easy as possible for your friends to play as well. And for you to be able to do that in all geographies. And there's some geographies like LATAM that have had various currency issues and things like that. And so actually paying $20 one day could be much more costly than than the next day. So anyway, all of that goes to say, okay, we tried a bunch of different ways for premium product to offer different ways for people to try it, low barriers of entry for friends to play it, create kind of social engagements around it, and that kind of thing. And we went through a sequence of things to see if we can make that work. I would say what worked. So the block party concept of making it free to everybody for the first 9 days worked really well. It brought a lot of people in, and they played. We had high engagement levels. There was good skill-based matchmaking, but there was also lots of liquidity in each of the geographies for the different skill tiers, as well. So that worked really well. The free trial concept afterwards was and another thing that worked pretty well was Game Pass. So we said, okay, well, after Block Party was done, we still needed a way for players to come in relatively low friction. So we made it a Game Pass at launch title with Xbox, and so which is a little uncommon for EA Play type of products. So that would provide a certain level of player liquidity for Xbox users, and then we offered a free trial afterwards, sort of a level cap of 25, which would give on average about 5 hours of play, so plenty of play for players coming in and seeing if they like it. I think ultimately what didn't work was a couple different areas. One is that Game Pass was helpful in North America, where we continue to have pretty decent player liquidity in a premium model, but was not as prevalent in other parts of the world. So I think when we go to LATAM or most of the continental Europe, especially, I mean, UK is a bit stronger on the Xbox side. When we go to Japan, Xbox at that time under-indexed, quite a bit. So that wasn't really a flow for player liquidity. Then the messaging around trial, it's just a bit complicated. Like, even though you could get in, anybody could get in and play, it's not well understood. So it is a sort of, maybe we were trying to make the most out of a situation where probably the pricing model was out of step with where the marketplace is, and we're trying to make up for it. The other thing that I think went well in a certain sense, but we probably just couldn't do, is that our team needed to get its sea legs for live services operations, for content deployment, for being able to do all of the events and sequences and all the creative content, the changing mechanics, and we had a plan for that. The execution of the plan actually went pretty well, but it still takes time to build veterancy in that area and really understand what the community wants. And one of the things in a games of service that I think mobile developers do really well in is that they can keep their structural costs of essentially doing a soft launch for that, pretty low. So like, I'm going to operate a game, it'll be under brand X, it'll only be in New Zealand, and you'd run it until you achieve your KPIs and then scale it up elsewhere, for example. So it's very common in mobile development. It's actually really costly for premium console PC development. One, because especially on consoles and PCs, there's not an easy delineation of, let me just do New Zealand or something like that. Yeah. Usually you go, for Sony, it would be Sony of America, SOE, Sony of Japan, and you're territory wide, in those things. And in addition to that, like maintaining the amount of content that you need to push through in kind of premium console PC land for a game like this is quite a lot. So you have high structural costs for learning, for something like that. So really optimizing it for engagement and things like that. It's essentially like we launch it in a big premium way for a lot of big audience to come in and a lot of premium sales up front, but without really a soft launch period in a test market where we could run it out and see, are we actually getting our long-term engagement KPIs as well? And so I think that actually, for new titles for console and PC, that really has to be built into the model. We didn't do that. So in a way, the last year has been us working on all these systems. Like, we didn't have any bots in the game at all at launch. And, at first you scratch your head and say, well, most players online hate bots. But the reality is that bots are a really good on-ramp for brand new players. They can be effective in tutorials. In a game like ours, if you're not with friends, smart bots could be really good teammates as well. And one of the issues that we ran into, some of these things you can only learn live, is that when you have lower player liquidity, sometimes you're matched after a certain period of time into a group that's already mid-game. That's a join in progress thing, but they may be on the losing end of a game, so it's pretty demotivating for a new player coming in. And so these are all roles for bots that say, yeah, we should have done that, but we learned that late, and so we implemented it as the game went live. So these are all things that I think one is sort of like the messaging on the trial was confusing, the competitive landscape had changed with respect to the pricing model, and importantly, we didn't have the right approach, I don't think, from a soft launch standpoint, to be able to optimize KPIs before going big, and that part is actually quite incompatible with premium pricing, which relies on a lot of sales up front. So these are the types of things. And so you do have examples in other cases of premium products where sales go up really big and then churn is very high, as a result of not optimizing KPIs. So these are all, but they're all lessons that are taken in stride. That's why we're so excited going forward for our conversion to free to play on June 1st, which will be probably the date that people are hearing this broadcast.
Today. Today,
yeah.
For those who are.
Oh, I should say today, right? So,
yeah, that's right. Which is today. We're definitely this is live, definitely. So you're making the move to free to play. Are you how do you expect that to change things?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, it's the last year has been awesome. Both having the product out there and with our community. And evolving the game. The game today has, come a long distance from what we thought was really high quality core offering to something that's highly responsive to community. We have lots of features that have gone in the process as well to be able to, help onboard users with matchmaking, with bot play that complements team play really well, on ramping and team play really well, better accessibility to the progression systems. We've done a lot of balancing work, on that side as well. And so I think the number one thing on the free-to-play side is going to be sort of a doubling down and recommitment to an awesome variety of new content. Season 6 starts today on June 1st, as well. And we really committed to every season introducing something new, and it's probably worth a little bit of an aside on Velan Studios, something new for the audience from a fundamental play standpoint, from a play mechanic standpoint, as well. Mission for our studio, why we started in the first place, is to really challenge forms of play and offer something new for players at a very basic game mechanic standpoint. And so in operating a live services experience, the team itself really embraces that concept. And with every season, they say, okay, what's going to be new about the play of this game? So we're going to bring that into season 6. And, of course, you'll see similar for season 7 and all the way beyond as well. So it's really a redoubling commitment to our community around live content, as well for the product. And importantly, the switch to free to play, as you mentioned, which really will make this the game much more accessible on a broader basis, and importantly, accessible to all of the community's friends and social networks, and all of that stuff, because there's just such a minimal barrier to entry. Really excited about players in LATAM coming on board, players in Asia coming on board, in addition to folks that are just active. Free-to-play users, in our Western markets as well. So it's a recommitment to all of that, with an awesome new lineup of content.
Have you had to build anything new to sort of prepare your company for the move to sort of free-to-play?
Well, there's a bunch of things. Some things are that we've had to prepare new. We're taking on. In the process of going free to play, we're also becoming the publisher for the game. Yes. And that's a little unusual because of course we launched with EA as the publisher, and really as a publisher, EA Partners was more like really a hand-in-hand business partner with us. And so when they looked at the move to free to play, they said, well, this is not a fit for us, but let us help you figure out how you could do this. And so we work with them, but we've had to build a small indie publishing organization, at Velan Studios as well, because we'll own our own marketing. We've owned community management from day one, but that has to be extended to social media, broader social media presence and capability as well. And so there's a bunch of different areas like that we've had to build and prepare at the studio. From a game standpoint, it's taken on more responsibility for looking at how the game is going to evolve for all of our players in all the geographies, and making sure that there's quick and sort of a clear response line between what's happening in the community and what we can do from a live standpoint. But a lot of it is just making sure everything goes smooth. So in some ways, operating a premium game from a live services standpoint, that behavior is going to be quite different for users. That community that self-selects is going to be a bit different than users that are coming in from a free-to-play standpoint as well. And so it's preparing all the systems to be able to say, okay, let's understand what happens right afterwards. So the big promise that we'll make to consumers is that the game will continue to be awesome, and we'll really work hard to provide, awesome play environment for folks. In addition to, rich, pipeline of new content that's coming out, but using that as a basis to be able to just really learn, how free-to-play users, which will be a bit different, how they engage with the game. So much of what we learn, so we designed a game with a core set of mechanics, and we saw that evolve through emergent play and how teams are actually engaging with the game and how they play the game. And so a lot of the stuff that we're doing, new features that we're rolling out and things like that are in response to that as well.
Wow. Oh, you mentioned though, you are going self-publishing. So, what happened there? What's you started with EA? It seems like quite a change. It sounds relatively friendly. So, what's gone on there?
Well, I think all along. I mean, EA is best of partners, and I'm not saying that because I need to plug them or something like that. In a sense, it's like we struck a deal with them in 2018 after we developed the core of Knockout City out, and said, okay, well, this really works for EA, and they have a lot of experience in terms of launching MP games with live services support and so forth. So there's a lot that we could learn from them as well as a team that's just, we were building the team at the time as well. But it was actually in the construct of a premium business model, and that's what they were able to support. And so when it became evident to us, we just needed to make a directional change, which really started presenting itself mid to late last year, like around September, October timeframe. It was very clear at that time. Then it was like, okay, well, how do we work this out? Because their organization and EA Originals set up to really bring amazing indie experiences to consumers, but not necessarily extended investments in free-to-play titles that the IP belongs to another studio or us, not EA, and that whole investment and return model was just different. And so we said, how do we work this out? And so it was just a very constructive dialogue to say, all right, well, we know this is the right direction. Free-to-play is the right direction. Business-wise, it's not going to be a fit. So let's figure this out. And, Karthik, me, and our leadership team, Velan, were like, well, I think we could actually finance this ourselves. We could figure this out. We could put together the story, and we don't need to have a large team for publishing it. We could have a highly focused approach and work with our partners to be able to, bring this out ourselves. Our own economics as a indie studio are very different than large enterprise, and so we don't have to have it be huge right away. Sorry about that. We don't have to have the game, take off like a rocket on day one. We can build it over time, and so we could really have this very community centered approach to doing it. And so that was a set of reasoning and logic of it. In fact, the most of the time that we spent working out the logistics of it was because EA had never done anything like this before. And it took so many different participants in their organization to say, why are we doing this first? and then, and then how do we do this? Because nobody's done it before. We don't have a process or a system and that kind of thing to do this. And, but we made it work actually. And when we got the alignment, there was so much support between all the different groups to be able to help us stand up our capability to get it done. And so I think what really won out for them was when they set their overall sort of value-based priorities, partner first is one of the most important things to EA partners. It can't be economics last, but it is partner first. And so in that spirit, I think they achieved the bringing, supporting indie studio, really launching a title that has the love of community as well as critical acclaim. Successful in many dimensions, but if the transition was going to go into a new business model, they couldn't follow there. So I'm really appreciative actually of the effort because it's not an easy thing to unravel a deal and then put it in a totally new context.
No, well, I was going to ask what had to happen to sort of manage that, but it sounds like it sounds complicated.
Well, I think there's two levels of that. One is that the leaders need to have a common viewpoint on it, and I think that was conceptually that was relatively easy. And then there's some critical dynamics around it, like how do we handle users and user migration and privacy and all these types of things that are actually quite complex. And so then there's the handling of those things that sort of like, we don't know how to do this, and so let's figure that out. And then once those were aligned and we had a clear path, then it was a matter of, okay, let's put the teams together and then put it on a project plan. We know we can send a pick to Mars if we're so motivated. Let's get this one done too. And so there was complexity to it, but it was good.
Yeah. Okay. So what does success look like to you now? What for Knockout City?
For Knockout City, I mean, there's a certain base level of economic sustainability that we need to achieve. So a certain player base, and eventually economics that can come from that player base. So our number one priority this year is on KPIs around user retention and engagement, which is the lifeblood of any free-to-play title. And that's all around being very player-centric and making this the staple, one of the staple social games that they'll come to week after week, type of thing. And then it's about sort of player-friendly monetization systems as well. But all that together, we need to achieve a certain minimum level of economic sustainability. And then it's about growing it over time, really following the community, growing it over time. And it's really the fourth leg of our own business plan from a Velan Studios standpoint. I don't have the index card with me here, but Karthik and I wrote down our business plan on an index card when we started in 2016. It was really build an awesome team, find an idea that they're super passionate about, figure out the go-to-market strategy, and then evolve the product with our community. And so we're sort of like changing the go-to-market right now, and then really working on evolving it as well. So that's really the vision for it. And I think it can really play a unique role in players' kind of play repertoire. It's something different, and it continues to be something really unique among games out there.
Well, well, good luck with that. But there's been,
I think good luck to us all, right?
It's always I always admire, because it must be quite a change for the business generally to be able to sort of live. So you would have known this anyway going into a live service game, whether it's free to play or not. But how has Velan changed sort of since we last spoke, really, which was this time last year?
Well, I think that the measure for success for Velan Studios is really, it's not making a good game once or twice. Can we do this over and over again and do it in a manner where the games themselves offer something creatively, something very unique. So we started the company to make, I mean, our mission statement is make breakthrough games that are magic. What that really means is play experiences that feel very fresh and challenge expectations, the things that are going to be remembered for ages. So we hope the games that we make can, have some breakthrough and become staples for users. But just as important is our capacity to invent new and to get new ideas going, to take kind of risks that other people would shy from. And I think if we ask for straight business analytics advice or industry analyst advice, it'd be like, well, look, here's a team that's good at a certain genre. Get them to keep making more than that, not more of that, because that's what's investable. But what we try to do is to say, all right, well, there's definitely merit in that. But what it also does is, result in very derivative products. So you get a slightly different variant on what's done before, or something with a twist. Or the worst version of that for us is a this meets that. This meet that is probably the cross between a camel and a donkey. I don't know what it is, So, so we try to stay away from any of that stuff, and then really go after, what might be fresh experiences. So we have some new things in the pipeline cooking as well. But the big thing that's different between Velan this time last year and now is that we are our own publisher. So adding self-publishing, Knockout City is the first step to that. We'll have a second title coming up, not ready to announce it yet, in the upcoming months, likely early next year as well, and building off some of our core capabilities. And then we have a bunch of new things in the hopper as well. And the big challenge for us is, when you start getting good at something, how to then go divergent to that at the same time. So you don't want to throw it all away. So certainly we need sustainable franchises to give us the economics to keep reinvesting. Mm-hmm. But the challenge is always, all right, now what? How do we now surprise players in a very different way? And that's really what we're very much engaged in right now. Not only making Knockout City successful in a live environment, getting our next game out, but also how do we continue challenging? Because if we don't do that, then one of the fundamental reasons for starts fading. And that's a scary prospect. We don't want to let that happen.
No. So this new title, would you be publishing that yourself, or is this?
Yeah, our plan is to take that one out ourselves. It doesn't mean that we won't work with publishing partners at all. So I think I have a special place in my heart for Nintendo as well as EA and EA partners. And we have a wide variety of other partners that we talk to on a regular basis, but not all creative ideas are good fits. And that's one of the reasons to have a self-publishing capability. It's not to say, let's launch a pipeline of 50 self-published titles every year or 25 or whatever. There are different variety of business plans out there in the industry, right? It's really to say, how do we make unique things come to market? And sometimes, for example, when we started, we started relatively small. We couldn't launch a game like Knockout City independently ourselves at that time. But things change over time. So the capabilities that we have today are different than we had 6 years ago, or 5.5 years ago or so. And so in that sense, I think we'd see a mix, going forward.
Okay, that's just interesting. Because obviously because you were investing in other studios, and so I thought, are we looking at the Velan publishing operation sort of emerging out of this? But yeah, getting excited. Getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, well, I think let's say first things first. I mean, people have grand ideas and things like that, but what really counts is execution. So I think we need to make sure that what we're doing a great job in. And then, one of the things that I've found, and I'm sure my colleagues around the industry would tend to agree with, is that if you're generally in the right direction, what really counts is doing an amazing job each time. And that opens up lots of opportunities, down the line. On the point of the investing, we look at new things all the time. Last time I talked to you, I was talking about Tonestone, which, the Tonestone team's still working on. It's a way of gamifying music creation. and they did an awesome job on that. So they've gone from prototyping to having that out on Steam Early Access now, and they're working at it. And so I'd love to see entrepreneurs really try to come up with ideas that are very different. And so we're always eager to look at those things as well. But typically we do that through Velan Ventures, which allows us to do small scale seed investments and so forth, rather than Velan Studios, which is really focused around making the games.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Guha. Good luck with the transition today and the game in going forward. It is a really great game. So if you haven't played it, anyone watching from home, it's free. Go and give it a go. Why not? There's nothing to stop you now. But that's all we have time for. Thank you, Guha, again. That actually ends GI Live Online. There are meetings continuing to go on into the evening, and you can rewatch all previous sessions on live.gamesindustry.biz. But until next time, which will be in London in September, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.